It's a decent fish. There you go, brother.
The hardest thing with this technique is line management.
Oh yeah. There I got him. Oh, there we go. That's a good one. Is that they would it would take forever to get the fish in because you'd have no power on them. It's a decent fish.
Rob's on a good one.
An El Diablo.
Is it?
Yep. Yeah, that's a real nice fish for here. It's a holdover.
Oh yeah. There he is, the master.
I don't know about that. See, the drone called him up.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, that's definitely a fish that's been in here a while.
That's a big fish of the day.
So definitely a Green Valley toad. Oh, I was trying to raise his head.
You gotta be quicker than that.
Yeah. He just won't stick his head up. He knows what I'm trying to do. There, I got him. There, I got him. That's like a 4-pounder.
Yeah. That's a nice one. We'll get a picture here.
Yeah. There he goes.
There you go.
Chunky bro.
Even the anchor. Even harder for me to support you.
Yeah.
Really hard. Right.
There you go. There you go, brother.
Thank you. There we go.
Oh, that lemon lime.
Lemon lime. Fish number 3.
Killing it.
There we go.
Candy cane. They always love that one here.
Rob's gone into slow mode.
Let's see, it's a better one.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. If you're running short on time, I gotta start catching fish.
Yeah. Okay, that was candy cane.
Yep, candy cane. I got some if you don't have them.
Ain't gotta tell me twice.
All right, ladies and gents, I want to take a quick break from the action to show you what's going on out there and what I'm using and what's working. I'll start with the rods and reels. This is an ultralight spinning rod. It's 7'6" in length, and I have it paired with a 1000 series reel. Reason why I tell you this is you can use any ultralight spinning setup to do a lot of these techniques. This happens to be a Katana custom rod with a 1000 Vanquish reel on it. Very, very nice setup, but it's very specialized and very spendy. But you can do these techniques with just any spinning rod and reel, as long as the reel's around 500 to 1000 series and the rod is at least 7'6" to 8 foot in length. The biggest issue you're going to have when you're throwing these very light baits like these small minnows and these mini jigs is your line. And I have a braid on here. It's Sinister Strand premium fiber braid in 4-pound, and I run that up to a 5-pound Runkle Power Fluoro leader. But the line is what's going to help you get a good cast, and basically the length of the rod. So you can use any other spinning rod that's ultralight, as long as it has, say 4-pound mono or fluorocarbon on it. or even lighter. If you really wanted to give it a try, go to something like a 2-pound Izorline Smoke. That 2-pound line seems to be stronger than most, and it'll give you a good shot at getting real good casts. But really, if you're throwing a 16th ounce mini jig, you can get around with a 4-pound mono and make some decent casts. So don't get too hung up on the rod and reel I use. This is just more if you really like the technique and you start having a lot of success with it, and you want to upgrade to something that'll get you even more success, or you have a lot more fun fishing the technique. So don't get too hung up on the custom rods and reels. You don't have to have it. Now, speaking of line, I'll show you this other rod. This is another katana that I use. It also has a 1000 series Vanquish on it, just an older model Vanquish. But what I did use is I spooled this up with Golden State Fishing's new Sinister Strand 6-pound braid. And I get a lot of questions on, which will the 6-pound work for throwing mini jigs? Is it a good line? This and that. So I decided to spool it up, and I hadn't fished the Sinister 6 because it's brand new. And went out to the lake, as you can see, and made a few casts with the same jig I was using out on my 4-pound setup, and it works just fine. The biggest drawback was that it probably casted, my cast was probably 12 to 14 inches shorter than on the 4-pound, but really negligible. Other than that, it came off the reel nice, it presented the lures nice, and it was easy to reel and work with. So if you feel more comfortable with a little bit heavier line, the 6-pound Sinister is just as good as the 4. I just prefer the 4, but you got to do what you prefer. It's kind of like what you're more comfortable with, then do that. Don't just do exactly what I do, because you may not be comfortable with some of the things I do. That's just me. I like doing those things. And it doesn't mean you're not smart or doing something wrong if you decide to fish a different weight line. Do you? If it works for you, do that. But this 6-pound worked real well. I'm probably going to use this 6-pound now for my drop shot applications. But easily, if I was out of 4, I would definitely spool up some of this 6 and go to the lake and throw mini jigs. It works just fine. And literally, it's 3 1,000ths of a millimeter larger than the 4. So it's very, very tiny line, very thin line. So don't get too hung up on the poundage. If you feel more comfortable with the 6, use the 6. Now let's go to the bench, and I'm going to show you the baits and how I set them up. All right, guys, these are some of the baits that we're working out there, or you will see later in the video. But this is a Golden State mini jig, candy cane. Real good color at Green Valley Lake. It works other places, obviously, but at Green Valley, I've had some absolute sleigh days with this color. This is a color that Mark started catching on, lemon lime. Another great color, real bright. Another standby, good old El Diablo. That this one just works everywhere, anytime it seems. And then last but not least, the mainstay, yellow and white, or we nickname it mac and cheese. But this is another one very much like El Diablo, been around for years, and it works everywhere, every water condition. So these are the types of weights that you use with minnows and inside these mini jigs. And this is a ball head weight, and this goes on the end of a minnow. Basically, the nose butts up to here, and I'll show you that in a minute. And these are the types of weights that go inside the tube mini jigs. This is a 16th ounce. They also have a smaller one, a 32nd. But we are fishing 16th ounce for the most part here, so that's why I'm just showing this one. And I'll show you how I rig these up. And basically, the main way I like to do it is put the eye of the hook into the skirt where the tube portion is, and just carefully slide it up in there. And once it's at the very top, I run my thumb over the eye of the hook, and it pops right through that rubber, just like that. And that's all you do. Or you can run it through the opposite way, and this way allows you to remain tied to your line. So if you imagine your line is tied to the eye of the hook, you run in the hook side. So we find that hole that I just made, carefully slide the hook in there, and carefully work it down the tube without repuncturing it. And then we carefully push the lead inside that little hole, and it'll stretch over it. And fix it up, and it looks just like that. It's as easy as that. Now, I'll show you the minnows. We weren't catching any on minnows in this video, but in a segment where I show you how to fish these rattle bobbers, I was using a minnow to catch fish at another lake. So you can use these minnows and mini jigs the exact same way, and that's usually what I do. So hey, hook these minnows up. You take your ball head weight, figure out where the back of the minnow is. We got a little eyeball here and a belly, and then some bumps. That's the spine of it. And we start at what would be the nose of the minnow. Push the hook on, and then carefully push the hook through the spine so it's as straight as possible, and it comes out looking just like that. Now these bobbers here were used, you'll see later in the video, but there's two types to use with a mini jig and a bobber setup. You have these two that have little bird shot in them, so they're called rattle bobbers, and what that does, it does two things. It makes noise when you move it, and it adds a little bit weight so you can cast it further with these light mini jigs. And these ones don't have any rattle to them, but they have a little lead weight at the bottom, but they will still float. But it's the same principle. It gives you extra weight to cast these light mini jigs. Now, when you're using these type of weighted bobbers or rattle bobbers, you don't want to use a 16th lead head in here. You want to use a 32nd or lighter, because the lead on this heavier one is going to fall a little bit too fast. And when using these rattle bobbers, you want this jig to fall as slowly as possible, because the principle is you pull on the bobber, this is going to pull your jig up in the water column, and then you stop, and this is slowly going to fall down, and that's when the fish is going to hit it when it's falling. So if you're using a 16th ounce, it's probably going to fall a little bit too fast in the 32nd, and the fish just aren't going to hit it. All right, guys, to show you a little bit of how I work these 16th ounce jigs backs, especially in a boat. You have to remember, if you're in a boat, you're probably in deeper water. So typically, regardless if you're down here in Southern California or up in the Sierras or somewhere else, you got to imagine the water's pretty deep. So I use the 16th ounce because I want it to get to more columns of water, to basically present it to more fish, because I'm not sure, especially in a rental boat, I don't have a fish finder, where the fish are actually located in the water column, right? So with the 16th, I cast it out and I don't let it sink typically. I'll just start working it back, real slow cranks and just light bounces, and continuously work it back. So basically that jig is going to fall as it's working. So it's going to go lower and lower and lower, even though I'm reeling it in real slow. And then eventually the line is going to catch up to it and it's going to start going upwards. So the theory is that since it's slightly heavier, it's going to go down further and up through different columns of water, so hopefully more fish will see it. The 32nd ounce, I typically don't fish a lot when I'm in a boat or in deep water, because it's just lighter, and even if you let it sink, there's other variables like wind and waves. They'll catch your line, and those 30 are so light, it will help keep it up in the higher parts of the column longer. And when you start working it back, it's even harder to get it deeper. So typically you're not going to present it to enough fish, in my opinion. So usually I'll stay away from the 30 seconds and I'll go with the 16. But as you see in this clip, as I'm working it back real slow reel cranks, light bounces, I inadvertently do a pause and then the fish hits. So what that tells you is, well, for one, typically I don't pause the 16th just because it usually doesn't work out well. With 30 seconds, that's a different story for another video. But with the 16ths, usually I have to do a steady retrieve, light bounces, and just keep going. But in this instance, what was happening is a fish was probably behind it and watching it, just following it, and as soon as it paused, it dropped sharply, and that was enough to make the fish strike. So that was just kind of a lucky instance that happened. But it goes to show you, sometimes change up your techniques. Just because I don't do pauses with the 16th doesn't mean you shouldn't. It may work for you. It just doesn't work for me, that's all. So always be open to things. If you're not getting bit, try unconventional things. Try a pause. Who knows? It may work. All right, now let's move on to our weighted bobber technique. and you'll see a little bit later in the video, Mike hooks one up using this. Typically in a boat, I don't use this technique too often because you're limited to how far, what depth you can get the jig to, you know, so you're only covering a very small column of water. It's usually a technique I reserve for shore, but there are instances, like it was very slow at times during this day, so Mike decided to try it and it worked out for him. You'll see in the clip a little later, there's another time when I was fishing and it worked out for me in that case, and I was in the kayak. So it does have its time and place. Just typically I use that on the shore, but essentially with your weighted bobber and your bait, your jig or your minnow, I usually like to run about a 5-foot leader, and that usually seems to be about in the right wheelhouse. I usually say 3 to 5, but typically I'll just do a 5 and see how it works. The only time I usually shorten it up is if there's a lot of debris in the water, like say weeds growing up from the bottom, and 5 feet is just too shallow or too long. Then I'll shorten it up just to get it right above those weeds and maybe have some success. But typically you're going to go with about a 5-foot leader, and any longer than that with a 7'6" or an 8-foot rod, it's a little bit hard to cast because you don't want your jig laying on the ground or laying in the boat when you try to throw it. For obvious reasons, could be a disaster. So let me show you the rod. And what I like to do when I'm working these back is cast out, and the hardest thing with this technique is line management. You just want to take up as much slack as you can without disturbing the bobber or the bait. So I'll just do a few light pops and then crank in a little bit of slack and let it sit. And then a few light pops, crank in the slack and let it sit. And the hardest thing with this technique is managing your slack, because you'll see that bobber go down, and if you have a bunch of slack, you're not going to be able to set the hook in time. So that's usually the biggest battle with this technique. And that's if the fish are biting. Sometimes they want nothing to do with this technique. Sometimes that's all they want. But it's just another tool in the toolbox, like I say, to try. So as you can see in this clip, I'm out in the kayak, and you can see I'm raising the rod tip a few times and then I'm reeling in kind of fast. Well, the reason why is it was kind of windy, and there was a lot of current in the water, so it was bringing the bobber back to me. So I was trying to keep up with that line slack. But it ended up being successful, and you see I hook up a fish. So it's always worth a try, especially if you were getting bit on just a mini jig by itself. They stopped biting. Maybe they went up a little bit higher in the column. Maybe they moved to a certain area. It's a little bit shallower, but you can reach with your boat or kayak. Try a bobber to jig, give it a shot. You never know. And the other thing that's interesting is I was using a minnow, a ball head minnow on a 32nd. You work the minnows and the mini jigs just the same, whether it's under a bobber or it's just on the end of your line. At least I do. There's really no difference. It's just more of what the fish want to eat that day, and what you feel comfortable with fishing, and that's really all there is to it.
Cleaning house on that bobber and mini jig now. I've created a monster. Yeah. He's a nice little stalker. A little something to clear up the complexion. Nice, dude. Oh, perfect. Like you meant to do it. Nice.
I told you to get the net when I hooked it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a toad around these parts.
All right, ladies and gents, there you have it. A great day out on the water. This video was filmed out at Green Valley Lake, easily one of my favorite lakes to fish in Southern California. Really fun lake, and as you can see, they're putting in some pretty decent sized fish. You're not going to get an epic, double-digit toad out of there, but definitely some 4s and 5s swimming around in there, which is awesome to me. I just like catching fish. It's always nice to catch a real epic size one, but 4 or 5 pounder to have a chance at it, totally fine by me. Also, right before I caught that very first fish that I think was about 4 pounds, I hooked into something bigger that was heavier, but just spit the hook. As soon as I felt the weight, kind of heartbreaking, spit the hook on me. So there's some other fish lurking out there. So I'm going to be back, and hopefully I can see if I can catch them. But when you're fishing from a boat, typically the best way to do it and the best way to get at them is these mini jigs and these minnows, at least in my opinion. The boats there don't only come with a rear anchor, so you don't have a front anchor, so bait and weight applications are kind of tough unless you're using a bobber. So when I fish at lakes like that, I just stick with the moving baits. They're also real good on spoons there. The trout love spoons up at that lake. So have a lot of tools in your toolbox, I like to say, and try a bunch of stuff. In this video, you can't tell by the editing, but it was slow. The bite was not on fire at many points. So as you can see, we caught them on a variety of different colors, probably because they were being finicky and changing their mind a lot, you know. So if one color isn't working, try another one. If you go through your colors, try a different weight, then try another technique. But that's the difference usually between catching and not catching. So with that, if you want to check out any of the fine products I use on this channel, there's a QR code right here. If you want to check out the Golden State Fishing Custom Baits, the Waterland Sunglasses, the TRUDAVE waders, the High Sea waders, or the Katana rods, if you click on this QR code, it takes you to a link tree that has hyperlinks with discount codes. All these products have discount codes of up to 15% off if you purchase something. And I also have links in the description below this video with all the hyperlinks and the discount codes if you want to check it out that way. But they're all outstanding products, and I use them constantly on the show, and if they weren't good, I wouldn't put them on here. So if you ever have any questions or comments, leave them here. I do enjoy answering them, and I do my best to get back to you guys in a timely manner. Or you can hit me up on Instagram at Seaspanker Outdoors and ask me whatever you want. I'm real interested in talking fishing. I get guys all the time that think they're bothering me, and you're really not. I enjoy it, and I enjoy doing this. It is tough sometimes, but it's something that I'm really passionate about. So I keep going. It's really fun to get out there and get fishing, and then to get other people on fish. I really enjoy it. So with that, I hope to see you guys out there, and I hope you all get outside soon and tie lines.